Hey everybody, welcome to Into the Flow. Gustavo Furman here. Thank you for listening on Spotify and watching on YouTube. And please subscribe. Thank you. All right. So now, this is season 2 of my podcast already. I've done 10 episodes on season 1. I had great guests, and thank you to everybody that came and talked to me. We had a great time. Now, starting season 2 with a band with an amazing guest coming up right now. I'm not gonna tell you his name yet because I want to tell you a quick story on how we met. All right, so I love to listen to podcasts on Spotify, inspiring podcasts. I found one named The Perspective Shift, has two hosts, Frank Daly and Mike Kitlas, and I love their show. I became a fan. They talk about law of attraction. They interview people as well. They talk about perspectives, different perspectives, and a way of different teachers and pretty spiritual guides. It's a great show, and they are really cool guys. They are very laid back, and they really have great conversations. So I became a fan. One time I was listening to a show, and after the show, I basically wrote down, I was on Instagram, and I wrote down, I'd love to interview one of you in my show for Into the Flow. And I let it go. I went with my impulse, with my inner being kind of telling me, hey, that'd be cool. I got excited. I just wanted to just write it down and do a request and put it out there into the universe and let it go. Hey, Bird, how are you? I'm outside here. If you guys don't see me on Spotify, of course, I'm outside enjoying the sun and there's birds everywhere. Anyways, so I put the request out there and let it go. And within about a couple of days or 3 days after that, one of the hosts of the show, Frank Daly, answered and said, yes, I'd love to talk to you. And let's have a great conversation here and Into the Flow. Wow. So I was so grateful and excited to talk to him and meet him in kind of in person, but of course not in person, but over Zoom, because he's actually in Arizona. And so we had a 2-part interview. So today's part 1 of 2 with Frank Daly has written 2 books, Enjoy the Ride and Power of Perspective, and is a wellness and life coach over like about 20 years experience. A great guy, very knowledgeable, very inspiring to talk to him. And I'm so happy and grateful to have done that and excited to now show you guys this awesome interview I had with him. And not only that, but after this interview, after this 2-part interview, and maybe I would say about a month, I will be now interviewing his host or co-host of the show, Perspective Shift, Mike Kitlas. Wow, what a lucky guy I am. All right, here we go, everybody. So get ready for an awesome interview conversation I had with Frank Daly. Here we go. Perfect. Hey everybody, how are you? How's everybody doing? This is Gustavo Furman, Into the Flow. Today is exciting, and amazing. Those are my 2 favorite words, Frank. Just always saying exciting, I'm always saying amazing, like almost anything.
Yeah, it takes it to a whole nother level. Rather, it's good, Amazing's better than good. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, it's just an exciting time right now and an episode because I have with me Frank Daly. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Daily, yeah.
Thank you, Frank, for being here with me. This is an exciting time because I just started my podcast not too long ago, and I'm really passionate about it. I'm really passionate about sharing my beliefs and also like just just connect with people, to connect into the flow that we all are, the energy that we are, and whatever we do. And so excited to have you here with me in this show.
Yeah,
Now, what I
congratulations, by the way.
so
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a nice long introduction because you have a lot of cool, amazing, amazing things you've done in your life.
Yeah.
So you are a wellness and a life coach with over 20 years experience,
Hmm.
and author of two books. Wow, not even just one book, but two books. The
Yeah.
first one is Enjoy the Ride, which I
Hmm.
love the name already. And the second one, which is the latest one, is Power of Perspective.
Correct.
And you also are a host of a very popular podcast that I actually this is where I actually found you first, because I love podcasts, I love listening, I love learning, and I went I think it was Spotify, and I just entered Law of Attraction, and I started looking around, and your podcast came up with your co-host Mike Kitlas, and it's called Perspective Shift.
Yeah.
And I love that right off the top. I'm like, these guys are so fun. They're so real. I relate to you guys because I kind of speak the same. I'm kind of swearing a lot. I'm kind of like saying whatever I feel. It's like
Yeah.
you guys, and I'm like just started listening almost like every day. I started sending it to my
Yeah.
friends,
All right.
and
Thank you. Yeah.
listen to these guys. They're cool. And so that was how I found you, Frank, and here you are. And just I think this is all part of the flow, having you in my show, I think.
Absolutely. It's what we call synchronicity. Like there's something happening behind the scenes that we're not really aware of, but what we do is when it comes out, we notice it. And that's what we call synchronicity. We don't really exactly know how it operates, but we know when we get our level, like our energy to a higher frequency, each frequency will emit new experiences within it, you know? And so, yeah, by you getting exciting about this is how this all transpired, the same way I got excited about it. And if you go to, like, say, someone like a Joe Rogan, who's one of the top podcasts out there, he was excited about doing it. And this is how it all kind of unfolded for everyone. So when you follow your excitement, it's amazing what happens. But I don't hold my excitement onto to an outcome. The excitement itself is a generating field, and then the outcome's like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool. But I let go of the insistence of having to happen a certain way, and it's kind of like how we ended up here. Yeah.
Wow. And I want to talk about that because you mentioned that excitement is so good. I think to me, excitement is that uh, um inspired action. Basically, as you know, Abraham Hicks talks about one of our teachers, I think,
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Hicks. They talk about being and having taken inspire action. So basically, you get excited first about an idea, and so a lot of people, and I actually used to do this, even though my career was going so well with my dancing and everything I was doing. I will get excited, and then somebody would say something that will like dim it, or it will like kill it. It will kill the passion on the excitement.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, and then I started thinking, the noise of our ego comes in. Oh, maybe I shouldn't do it that way. But the goosebump, that the first feeling of excitement, that's what I want, I love. And then you move with that excitement, you
Yeah.
make steps. That's inspire action. What do you think of that?
Well, the way I look at that is too is like because a lot of people get hung up on this, and I teach this with my coaching. But what really, when you get excited, the metaphor I use is kind of like if I'm trying to get onto the freeway with my vehicle and I'm starting out at zero, like at a red light, and I'm trying to get onto a freeway. The RPMs in my car go up to about 4 to 5,000 RPMs to get to the speed in which I want to cruise at. Once I get to that speed, the RPMs drop, but the car doesn't slow down. So the excitement is like this burst of energy that generates us to move forward. But you got it. But once you start doing the action oriented part of it, the energy drops, but it doesn't mean you slow down. It's a misunderstanding. A lot of people think, oh, the excitement went away. I'm like, well, you would burn your system out if the excitement remained behind. You wouldn't be like the exciting part is when you get excited about something, I'll sit there and talk about, write it down. But the energy is too much for me to actually take action on it. In other words, if I was in my car speeding up to get onto the freeway to get to, like 75 miles an hour, that's not a time to start drinking my water or coffee or whatever it is, because the G force is pushing it down. So excitement should be just a little part of it, energetically wise. Then once you get to the speed you want, that's when the action's taking place. So people get mixed up. It's like, oh, I love that feeling, but it keeps going away. I'm like, it needs to go away, because now you got to focus and go into the system. And then along the way, your intuition will start to tell you, look here, and synchronicity comes, and act on it. And at that point, you want to have zero insistence on the outcome. Most people are looking for outcome-oriented attributes. And it's like, yeah, that's the problem. We don't know.
Wow.
Because if we did know, it means we did it already. And what fun is that?
Wow.
So the excitement is the driving engine. That gets me off the couch, and then the work begins. But I'm enjoying every moment. When I'm not enjoying it, it's because I'm getting distracted by other things. So if somebody said something to you, I don't think that would work out. You're getting distracted by their energy. That's all that's happening. And even you get distracted by energy, and say you get distracted for a week, who cares? It doesn't matter. The engine never stops running. It's always going to move you in the direction which you want to go.
What do you recommend, or do you tell your clients, let's say, when they say they lose their excitement, right? And they listen to the noise of the world, and they don't really they start taking the action, but then they stop.
Yeah.
And then they leave it behind for a long time. And what do you say when they want, like, I really like this idea, but I'm just kind of don't know what to do anymore. I lost my excitement. So how do you get back that excitement again to keep going with the project?
There's a couple of modalities I use, and depending on the client, and I find out where they're from, or what age they are. This is all different attributes I find out to what modality. But the one modality I give to every one of my clients is breath work of some sorts. The reason being is when you notice excitement, where do you notice it? Like you mentioned, the hair standing up on the back of your neck. Well, that is your nervous system working with energy that's flowing properly. All right, really flowing with zero or very little resistance. So when you start to work, again, we want to flow, but the energy kind of tames down. It's more in a calm state. When you notice it's not flowing, you feel it in the body. So most people try to mitigate it by another thought. Says, oh, that person's lying. I can do this. I'm good at that. I'm like, that's a tough way to go about it, because now you're defending the idea in which they had against you, and that doesn't work. So when you feel a dip, I tell people, just, you can do this while you're having a conversation. Just take a deep breath in your nose, and then slowly out, like almost double the time. So if I take 4 in the nose and I go out 8, all of a sudden my heart rate starts to slow down. So when we breathe in, our heart stretches, which amplifies our heart rate. Then when we breathe out, it shrinks. So we're in a homeostasis. I'm breathing 4 in, 4 out. That's where we're supposed to be. Again, we're not always there. But when something gets me, a heart rate goes up. I want to actually slow it down. So I breathe in and I slowly breathe out. And all of a sudden, you can feel yourself going from a sympathetic state, which is fight and flight. I can't do this. This is not wrong. I'm in the wrong place. I can't believe I thought about this, to, oh, now I'm in a parasympathetic state. I'm like, oh, now I could see how this works. So when I'm in a sympathetic state, it's like putting me in the basement of a building with no windows and can't see any opportunity other than what's in the room. And what's in the room has already been done. But when I start to get my system into a parasympathetic state, it's like going to the first floor, the second floor, and I see windows and I see other opportunities outside of the field of this room. And then I'm like, okay, what would happen if I keep going up to floor 3, 5, and so on and so forth?
Wow.
And that's kind of understanding it. So once you sit back, it's your nervous system that was triggered by a thought that somebody imbued into you, or the world imbued into you, or the news imbued into you. And all of a sudden, your body is feeling it. So go to the body, not to the mind. The mind is what did it. So once I go to the body and start to get into that state, I could do it while I'm driving. I could do it in the middle of a conversation with you. I could close my eyes. When you close your eyes, it seems to work quicker, because there's one less, sensory interference there by sight. But and the whole thing is, it's to get people, like, my goal is, because I'm there. But I get kicked off a lot, but I know how to get there. I know how to get home again. Is I want to be in a meditative state all day long, not just on the morning routine of the 20-minute or hour meditation, whatever I may do. I want to be there all day long. That's where we're supposed to live. And there is no process or no regimen of that. So these regimens, such as breathing, they're training us. Just like an athlete, like say a boxer, once a boxer gets to a certain point, they're no longer training. They're actually just sparring and getting in shape. They're no longer learning how to throw the punch. They're doing it in real time. Same with musicians. They don't like musicians just once they get to the point where they know all the scales, whatever instrument they're playing. Now it's about getting into the zone and playing the music. And so it's about even getting away from meditation.
Mm.
Now, if I'm a musician and I'm like playing say jazz and I want to learn classical, okay, I might have to go back to meditation for that and learn different scale structures and everything else, and that's fine. But that is fun as well.
Wow.
So understanding how this system works, our body works, is a life changer. It is a mechanism.
It's amazing.
Once we actually can control our breathing, which we can, I can tell anyone really upset. I'm like, okay, do me a favor, just take a deep breath, and they'll do that. And they'll breathe out slow. I'm like, how do you feel? A little bit better. Keep doing it. All right. It's not that the situation or problem went away, but when I'm in the basement, it's a problem. When I'm on the first floor, it's a situation. When I'm on the 20th floor, it's exciting. It's the perspective and where I'm looking at the situation. In the basement, it is a problem. I can't see anything else to get me out of it. But as I get to clearer vision, higher frequencies, so by doing this work of breath work, and sometimes I'll go in and do deep ones, it shows me a new frequency. Now, what will happen is I'll do a great meditation, like an hour-long meditation. Like actually, me and my wife were up in Sedona yesterday, and we did this. There's a woman up there. She's fabulous. She does Reiki, and it's you feel your whole energy system. So what happens? You go here, right? Now, say we started here. Now we go here, but what happens is I come down, but I never go back to where I was.
Mm.
So this here, like I'm not going to feel blissed out all day in a sense, but it was a new bliss. But this bliss took me here, and then slowly as it came down, it was a different feeling. Again, the RPM's dropping, but now I'm at a different level, so I could see things differently, more opportunities, more ideas coming to me. And
Wow.
when I start to act on those, they start to turn into physical attributes in the world.
Mm.
And
Wow.
that's it. So when we work on a frequency, how we feel, then do. But most people are trying to do something to feel good. I'm like, that's putting the cart in front of the horse.
Right.
So then when I do it, like kind of when you dance, you then perpetuate that energy and keep it going. So that becomes a perpetuation of energy. So the doing is necessary. It's,
Yes.
unless if you don't do it, it becomes what we call a stillborn. The idea was there, got you excited, but the pregnancy never came about.
Right.
And and so learning how to control your nervous system will then change the way you think about life. Because the thought that made me upset, and then all of a sudden I did a couple of breath works and breathing. Now I can look at this and like, hey, this is no. If someone comes and criticizes me, I'm like, they don't know me to even criticize me. Why would I buy into that? So all of a sudden you're now at a higher level. This won't happen anymore.
Mm.
There are other challenges, but hey, like we got this type of thing. There's always
Right.
going to be a challenge the higher you go, but when you understand how it works, it's a challenge, not a problem.
Mm.
And that's kind of the fundamental approach I have to it in helping people. And I only help people. I only tell people what to do what I already do. There are
Right.
other modalities out there that are really good. I'll, I'll like, yeah, check. Someone's like, what do you think about this? I'm like, well, I've never done it, but check it out. See, it might really work well for you where you are, you know?
Wow, you've said so many great things that my mind is just kind of going, okay. But the one thing that for sure is keeps coming back is, I think I don't know if you ever heard of Erin Lyons. I'm listening to her a lot, one of my
Mm-hmm.
other teachers, and she mentions that in her clock or her watch, she has a timer every hour where she connects to herself and she breathes throughout the day
Yeah.
because we can like if we can meditate in the morning and a lot of things will happen throughout the day and you get off balance of the flow and then wait a minute. So you go back every hour, you're like, how am I presenting myself in this situation? How am I relate? How am I still aligned to my inner being? You know, am I still being genuine to myself? Like breathe in, breathe out. You know, like
Yeah.
you were saying throughout the day, right? And another thing that came to my mind too when you were saying is some people try to take action with force. They
Hmm.
don't get the feeling first, right? They might get the idea and they go with force. And it happened to me even with this podcast. I mean, with my dancing, you know, I had so many great opportunities that came to me like that because I was in
Hmm.
the flow and I was following my cool intuition, doing things and things that just work out, you know. I got a
Yeah.
call from this person, then I got an email from that person. I was like, oh man, it's so cool. And so I realized that I did it all when I was ready to do it. Like with the podcast, I got inspired, and I'm like, because I've been studying this law of attraction and energy work and everything for a long time, but I wasn't really prepared to speak about it. And then I'm like, should I even getting out there like the
Yeah.
podcast? Am I know? Do I know what I'm talking about? Like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I feel excited about it. This is,
Yeah.
you know, my inner being is calling me to it. With all my experience of dance, and with everything on stage I've done, I feel the flow. I'm gonna put the flow into this show. And then I wasn't inspired because I kind of went through all this kind of health problems and kind of all the stuff I went through. And I'm like, oh, but I said I was gonna do it, and I've told people I was gonna do it, and I haven't done it. So I feel kind of bad about it, you know, for
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, you know, and my girlfriend said too, she's like, oh, what happened to that? Like, you said you're gonna do it. Like, it looks bad now that you haven't done it. I'm like, I'm not ready. Like, I
Yeah.
don't feel ready. And then one day I came back and I remember it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I sat down on my couch and I'm like, I'm so inspired right now to say what I believe, what I want to say right now. And I talked about what in the flow means to me. People love that first podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Oh my God, that was so awesome!" And I was like, "Blah blah 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 blah." You know,
Yeah.
I was just talking. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
touching again, sorry, but touching again, what you were saying is like you need to be energy first, feeling first,
Hmm.
breathe, take time, breathe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Find yourself. Then take the actions. Don't listen to anybody else. It will come.
Yeah, it will. And when you look at the whole process, when I look at this, a lot of people like will say to me, "Oh, I like your philosophy," and I'm like, "I'm not really talking about philosophy. I'm actually talking about physics."
Right.
So when you start to do that, you can actually come at this as more of a scientific way. So kind of like you were telling me about the practice that your other teacher, what was her name that you mentioned?
Aaron Lyons. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Where every hour she sets her watch for her to go breathe or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Over time, what happens is you won't need the watch anymore. Your
Right.
body will be there all the time. So right now, whenever we're shifting to another frequency, another level, is where we have to have a little more focus onto it. Just like if I just started playing piano, I've never played before. My focus then will be on playing the structured chords or whatever, or the scales. Well, say I gave myself a year of taking 20 minutes. After that, now I'm playing music. I don't think about it. So those processes take you to a whole level. Now that I know how to play the piano, now the challenge is I want to come up with a song. I want to play a song,
Right.
but not anybody else's song. I want to play my song. So this is where we're at here right now. So when we learn to control our nervous system, our here, everything starts to appear exactly at the right time. Not a minute too late, not a minute too soon. But what it is you came up here and then you dropped. So we're like, oh, I'm not here. I'm not ready. So what it is how do I get back here? And obviously you're back there. But then what happened is you do this. So I look at life kind of in the physical world. In order to go up, we must go down, right? So a lot of people tend to live life this way, where they go this here, here, here. Then after a while, they kind of go down because their peak never went above a certain level. Maybe the peak was in high school, say, just for argument's sake, story-wise. And all of a sudden, maybe a little peak here, but it started diminishing. The life we really want to live is this.
The going up higher.
Going up. So the trajectory is continuous. Some days more peak. If you look at the stock market, that's how the stock market works, right? It's always a trajectory. There's peaks and valleys, and so the reason I bring up that is when you understand the laws of physics, when things going down, you want to embrace the down. Because when a skateboarder embraces on a half pipe, the down, they go higher to where they were on this level. If you don't embrace it, you're going to do this and then have to start over again.
Right.
People only want to embrace the upward. I'm like, no, you got to, if you embrace the downward, you're turning lead into gold.
Wow.
That's where we live. Because people complain they're mostly here, not here. I'm like, it's because you got to think this is the greatest part of it.
Right.
So if you look, there's 4 seasons, depending where you live. It could be dramatic than other places.
Right.
So why would we want to invade these systems? These are fractals that the universe showed us. I just want to go up. I'm like, well, we live in a world with gravity. And I'm not saying that levitation is impossible, but from the average person that I talk to, they're not in a levitated place. So let's embrace the down, right? If I'm, and that's kind of how, when I get there, it's all good. And when people start to conceptualize that, their life changes forever because they're trying to avoid the down. I'm like, no, you can't avoid the down. The void is where everything happens.
Wow. It's part of it.
Yeah, it's part of it. Like winter is, like summer is, because of the temperature, right? So the human body is close to 100 degrees. So we want it to be 72 to 85 degrees. That's why, because it makes the body comfortable. But I'm like, the winter is where we really enjoy the summer. The winter is where the trees' roots grow really strong. So when the spring comes and then the summer comes and it bears fruit, it doesn't tip over. So if you start looking at the fractals and the patterns, that's what the universe gives us, or God gives us. It gives us patterns. And if we understand these patterns, there's congruent, collaborative patterns, and then there's interference ones. Ones of, I don't want to go down. Like, well, that doesn't work. And, you're a dancer, right? So if you're dancing in a choreography type of setting where it's other people, you want to all be flowing, right? But if you start banging into each other, right? That's
another kind of dance.
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, it is. But you recognize when it's working, and you recognize when it's not.
Right.
Because of these patterns are solidified into our experience. So it's a lot easier than we think. We just have to look at it differently. Life isn't by chance, but life is about exploration. I don't want to do what I've already done. So how do I know I want this? Right. So a lot of people think they want stuff. I'm like, you know what? Once in a while, my wants and my needs are dead on. But it's more of what I need in life, because I came here to have an experience and say, one of the analogies we use in this world of a soul contract, just like an actor coming to a movie. Well, I know what the character is going to be, but I haven't developed the character yet because I haven't been on the set yet. And when I show up to the set, everything, the producer, I go to wardrobe, they give me my wardrobe, they give me everything I need. And then if I'm really good at paying attention to the director, to the scene I'm in, I become an actor that could win the Academy Award. But if I get on the set, I'm like, I don't like what's happening here. I'm like, you signed on for this role. What did you expect? Right. Your anticipation, it should be this way. Maybe it was based on the last movie you did. You got to let that go. Because the exciting part is the unknown. We study individuals that went off into the unknown.
Wow.
I'm like, we get excited, but it was the unknown that made them come to that place to where we want to be. Wow. So what's your unknown? And so get comfortable with the unknown. But when you know that your energy is good, you're going to do better. In other words, you have a flashlight, we're going into a dark alley. It's no longer a dark alley because I am the light, Right. But if your light's not strong, don't go down the dark alley. So when you're not feeling good, don't force the podcast.
Right. Exactly.
Go sit down. Go get into that place. If you have to turn on Netflix, I tell people, if you have to keep turning it on, we got to work on that a little bit. But But the second you notice your stress level go down, if you're watching Netflix, turn the Netflix off and realize, wow, how quickly did I go from having anxiety to just being distracted by TV to no longer have anxiety in my body. That awareness is what solidifies you to get back home. But if I kept watching the Netflix and I go from episode to episode, I completely missed the point. Now I go off the deep end into where I was anxious. Now I'm in despair. I'm like, yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, there's
Sitting there for hours watching it.
Yeah, that's why I tell people to do like breath work, because there's a point in breath work where you're going to stop, You're not going to binge breath work, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why people are attracted to those things. It distracts them. But once you notice that, oh, I no longer feel anxious, turn it off. The anxiety might come back, but what was it? Your attention went away from this.
Right.
So when we want our attention to go away from this, I bring it to my body.
Wow. Yeah.
I notice my heart's racing. But how do I mitigate my heart racing?
Breathing. Breathing.
If I'm tired, I do an upregulator. I breathe in deep and out quick. So there's a lot of information, on YouTube or everywhere about breath work,
Yeah.
And when you start using it, I'm like, damn, I could change the way I feel.
But talking about breath work, and another thing I want to mention about breath work, I actually went through, I wanted to take a course about breath work, and I started looking around and I saw some of them, they complicated it way too much. It was too complicated, too mystical. Like it was, you know what? Human beings in general, we want simple. We want
Yeah.
something, and breath work, breathing is simple.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be this, tribal, like, like, I mean, this amazing, this thing that's just gonna be like, oh, it should just it's just part of like when you're running, you gotta breathe with your rhythm of your
Yeah.
body. When I'm teaching dancing, I teach actors to move for stage. I tell them, how do you enter the scene? Do you breathe? Are you exhaling or inhaling or exhaling?
Yeah.
Are you holding your breath? Are you heavy? Like they're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never think about that. But it's such a simple thing that we shouldn't complicate way too much. What do you think?
Absolutely. I believe, and not to knock anybody, the people are complicated. I think what they're trying to do is create a stream, say, of revenue or something like that towards themselves.
Yeah,
Because if they complicated, who else would mimic it?
right.
It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't mean it's
Yeah, I
actually,
guess it was complicated to me when I saw it. Yeah, exactly. I know.
yeah, like it should be very simple. Now, there are times when you want to go do that, like tribal stuff. That's an experience. I don't say it's absolutely necessary, but if you're drawn into that
Right.
stuff, like breathing, like when I look at life, we know this, there are 7 natural needs of a human being. All right. And these are fundamental things I teach. When I learned this myself, it kind of made me look at everything completely different. So the first one is oxygen. And these are timely fasting. So we can't go more than 3 minutes without breathing.
Right.
So if we learn to breathe well, then the second one is water. We can't go more than 3 days without water. So if I'm breathing properly, like dancing, working out, and focus on it, I'm naturally going to drink more water. And what does water do? Water gets rid of the toxins. If your body's toxified, it's very difficult for the nervous system to feel good. It really is. So if I'm breathing, now I'm drinking more water, I'm going to get better sleep. So sleep is number 3. So if I'm breathing, drinking water, and getting better sleep, when it comes to number 4, which is food, it's so easy to choose my food. But our system right now still gets hung up on, like, I don't feel good. What are you eating?
Mm.
They go right to 4. I'm like, you missed the first 3, people.
Right.
If you're actually getting really good sleep, you're not going to want to have that sugary snack at night, because the sugary snack is going to be a dopamine hit. But if you're actually breathing properly, drinking enough water, you're going to sleep better. When you wake up, you're going to nourish your body based on where you're at that moment in time. Not like, oh, I'm tired, let me eat a muffin in the morning, I'll get the sugar rush. Yeah, it'll work, but it doesn't sustain itself.
Wow.
And then, then after food, then comes shelter. And shelter could be it could be in a tent in the forest, as long as you're one with it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a big house, it can be a small house. It can be a sleeping bag, right? It's just shelter is something that keeps a physical body safe, right?
Mm.
And then the sixth one is relationship.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Relationship with nature, at any moment in time. Like I have multitudes of relationships, co-workers, my wife, my son, all these things. And when I'm with one, I'm 100% with that one. If I'm at the gym, my relationship with the weight, weights
Present.
usually, the weights usually give me a harder time than my wife, though. But anyway, so then the relationship, then the seventh one is creative expression. If we don't get to a creative expression point, this is where suicide comes in for most people, for all people. You would never consider suicide if you had creative expression. And creative expression literally can be making a bowl of cereal, planting a flower. It doesn't have to be this grandiose, Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel type thing. No, it doesn't have to be that way. It's the little things in life that create the creative expression. Once we have all seven of those, and we maintain those, that's when we reach these higher levels of we actually come in from a humanistic standpoint till we start levitating above this. Right now, we're still stuck in fight and flight. You're still in those lower centers. Like, where's my food? Where's my shelter? Like, is it going to disappear?
And
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt in that one, because I just came up with this thing where actually, again, Aaron Lyons was talking about being in the survival mode most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Humans are in survival mode all the time, and that's what you're saying right now, I think, in that sense of.
Yeah. So if I'm breathing and I feel good, I'm no longer in survival mode. I could see possibilities, even if I was living in my car, because I've had clients that were literally living in their car.
Wow.
So I had to start with them at the very basics, right? And all of a sudden, just breathe. Like, stop worrying about where you're going to sleep tonight. I need you to breathe right now, feel better. And when you do that, they rise to a whole level, and then what we call synchronicity, opportunities start to appear. A friend invited me on my couch. Perfect. You got to take those victories like you won the Super Bowl, not overlook them and wait for the Super Bowl victory. That's where our biggest mistakes are. The biggest mistake is waiting for that lottery. And so right now, if I went from making like 20 grand a year to 100 grand a year, I'm like, yeah, but it's not $1 million. I'm like, are you kidding me? You just generated 80% more income than you did the year before.
Right.
I'm like, that's a freaking Super Bowl win, baby.
Yeah.
And guess what? To get to the Super Bowl, they had to win every single damn game to get there. So stop waiting for this thing here, and then stop looking at this. And all of a sudden you realize, man, the most exciting point in my life was when I went from 20 grand to 100 grand.
Right.
And now you're a multimillionaire, but no. It was that first step that I took into this new world, new understanding that changed everything for me. Now all of a sudden money doesn't matter. Why? Money is a representation of where your energy is at. So it's a good litmus test. But then it's like, okay, now what am I going to do with the money? Because the universe doesn't just give you money for no reason. Okay, I'm going to start a foundation. I'm going to teach. I want to go into high schools and teach, like, these kind of concepts. The younger we get the children, the easier it is, because there'll be a point in human history which we're moving towards. I'm not trying to get there, where we won't even have to be teaching this. But imagine what the world would look like if every child had an expressive idea on there and just added into it. Like, each child is a thread onto this tapestry known as life. Where, like, oh, my thread's not good enough. I'm like, you wouldn't, if your thread wasn't good enough, you wouldn't have a thread. Like, the universe doesn't give you something. Like, in other words, if you had an idea to write a book, then people are like, well, who would read it? Like, the universe wouldn't give you an idea to write a book if nobody was going to read it.
Right.
So the universe gave you the idea to do a podcast, but then you're like, well, who's going to watch it? I'm like, well, that's not up to you. Like, you just do it. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're getting emails and calls from people all over the world. Like, I'm like, the first time I got a call from someone in Africa, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, you listen to me in Africa.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. I'm like, wow.
It's so cool. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I'm like, yeah. So you're real, and I wasn't even thinking of the continent of Africa, and it was just like, wow. I'm like, okay, this information, I believe, people are starving for it, and as we come and start talking about this stuff from our experiences, I'm not, you know, I'm talking this from my experience and putting it out with there, and I'm comparing it to all the masters that came before us, and they're all talking about the same thing.
The
It
same.
just they had a different spice to it than I do, than you do, but
Yeah.
yet nonetheless, it's this beautiful buffet of food that people are
Yeah.
wanting.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. Now that you're talking about your experience and your knowledge, which, we're all teachers and we're all students. And I think I want to ask you, how do you actually start it? Like, teaching this kind of stuff and you know, sharing it to the world. And there's
yeah.
a, there's a point, there's a point. I'm very interested about when I see people, how did that person started? And that really interests me, like everybody starts somewhere.
I want to believe every child that comes into this planet is there, right? Because even I had like friends that like when I peered into their life, like I'm talking to grade school or whatever, they didn't have the best home life, or whatever. But when we were on the playground, man, it was just amazing, you know. And then as we got older, we started storing this information into our heads, and we started slipping away from that. And I think that's where one of Jesus' statements is kind of like the understanding is becoming childlike. And now at this point in my life, I understand what he meant by that. Children have no expectation of what's supposed to happen. They just show up at the damn playground and they're like, hey, I need to make a friend today. No, they didn't even have that concept of having a friend. And when they show up at the playground, next thing you know, they have their best friend.
Yeah.
There was a thing called a swing set. They had no idea about this. They didn't read about it. They didn't watch it on YouTube. They just went there and they knew what to do with it. This slide and so on and so forth. But somewhere along the line, it's like, oh, I like the way that felt. How can I control that? Well, now you put the swing set in your backyard and no one shows up. Also, we try to control the outside world, and for me, it was right before my 21st birthday, where this tenseness of having to do something and yearning for that moment when I was a child, and then all of a sudden, I woke up one day and I found out my brother died the night before in a car accident,
Oh,
and
wow.
that just boom. I was like, F everything.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
okay,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden everything, like the world's walls of Jericho just came tumbling down and exposing everything. And from that point on, it was like this enlightenment moment, but it was kind of like, I can't live this way anymore. I want to get back to that childlike state.
Mm.
And to me, it was like this continuous walk. It's kind of like, you ever see steps that are like 4 inches deep where it doesn't feel like you're stepping up,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a long trajectory up to the building?
Yeah.
That's most of my life when I discovered that. But hey, when I kept stepping and stepping, and once in a while there was a higher step and like a quantum leap, what have you, I took it. But all of a sudden, when I look back, I realize how far I've come. So literally, just if you're gonna fall forward, but don't worry about falling. Just fall forward, get up, and keep going. And all of a sudden, over time, this information was coming beautifully. It became who I am. And the natural thing is then to teach it. And I'm not done learning because there's so much more out there. Because every time I get to a whole nother level, it's like, okay, I went from high school to college to graduate school to my thesis and doctoral and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, like every level, it's not harder, it's different.
Mm.
It's it almost feels like I gotta really focus now, and then all of a sudden when you're like 2 or 3 years into that system, you don't really, now you're adding things to it. But when you get to the next one, that's just how life is, and that's that whole going down and going up.
Yeah.
When you allow that, life is brilliant all the time.
Mm.
Yes, you're gonna feel sad when someone dies. You're gonna feel excited when something big happens. But what I'm talking about is this level of peace. I call it the James Bond effect. Yeah. So like when you're watching
I
James
like
Bond,
that. I like
yeah,
that.
because like James Bond, if he's like sitting
Always
at a
keeps it cool.
yeah, he's always cool. If he's sitting at a bar drinking a martini with a couple of women around or he's getting shot at, he's maintaining his cool. His
Yeah.
responses, like his actions, are different when he's getting shot at than when he's hanging out at the bar. But he maintains because who would actually watch James Bond if he started screaming when he was getting shot at? I mean, weird, right? Like, So,
What are you doing, man?
yeah, like, stop it, please, please, But what it is the reason we are attracted to that, because that's who we are.
Mhm.
So these things that I've learned that I'm teaching is to get you back to your natural state of here. And then from here, then now when I have all these 7 needs met, now the creative expression becomes where I hang out all day long. I don't worry about the oxygen. I don't worry about the water. I don't worry about the sleep. I don't worry about the food. I don't worry about the shelter. I don't worry about the relationship. My expression now, my creative expression is, how creative can I get with my breathing? How creative can I get with water? How creative can I get with my sleep? How creative can I get with my eating? How creative can I get with my shelter? How creative can I get with my relationships? That keeps my relationships new. It's using that creative expression and now making a full circle. So these seem linear, but they're actually circular, like they're circles. And all of a sudden, you can't find out where the one ends. It doesn't mean you don't work on it, but now I'm working on it in a spiral. I'm going up, not in a sedentary circle.
And, there will be a lot of people out there that something like that happens where a relative dies in a tragic accident, and they would not react the way you did, in a way of, you wanted to be a childlike again. Then you started working on your mind. That
Yeah.
kind of propelled you into who you are
Yeah.
in a way, because a lot of people it's a tragic, and it will
Yeah.
devastate you in a way that, I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
Let me clarify though. When that first happened, anger was my emotion.
right.
I wasn't like woken that day. It took me a while. Like I was
Right.
so angry that this actually happened. I
Yeah.
didn't understand what was happening. So, and then after the anger came like the sadness. It's kind of what they call like the mourning process, right? Everyone will go through it differently. But yeah, anger was my first. Like I was just angry at what happened.
Right.
And that anger then shoved me away from having to do what I thought the world wanted me to do.
Mhm.
And it took me up. But then, as I calmed down and started going through the mourning process, I found myself trying to go back to the old way of living, and I couldn't. It was
Mm.
like a complete lie to me. And I
Wow.
tried multiple times. I couldn't do it. I just could not do it. And to me, it was like the universe saying, no, you're done with that. And every time you try to go down that road, I'm just going to make it as painful as so freaking possible. It's going to be so painful that you don't even want to do that.
Wow. Yeah.
That's why the universe, when it gives me pain, it's showing me you're thinking and moving in the wrong direction, period. It's like an alarm system in my system. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong. It's kind of like if I'm driving a car and I got the GPS going because I've never been there. And the GPS says make a right. And I'm like, no, I'm going to make a left. The GPS is going to like recalculate, U-turn, recalculate. It's going to be so annoying that I'm going to to shut this thing up. I'm going to make the U-turn. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this is the direction I want to go.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Our internal guidance system will never, ever, ever give up on us. We can distract us. I could turn the volume off on my car so I don't hear it, but it's never going to give up on us. That's the brilliance of this thing. It never gives up. But when we don't follow it, we feel pain. So we're like, what's wrong? I'm like, it's kind of like if there was smoke in your house, aren't you glad the alarm went off? Right? I don't turn the alarm. I'm like, no, when I hear the alarm, I'm looking for smoke. I'm looking for something wrong. Not the
Exactly.
alarm. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so now the me getting upset, me getting angry is now a pivotal point for me where I'm like, okay, I'm obviously I moved too far in the wrong direction. I must recalculate back in the direction because we all have a journey to go on. We have free will how we act on it. Do
Yeah.
I like it? Do I hate it? All that stuff. But you're gonna go through it.
Yeah.
You're gonna go through it. So once we get into like what you call the flow, I love that beautiful word or idea. is when you're on a river, stop trying to swim upstream, like Abraham talks about,
Right.
because the stream is moving you in the direction in which you want it to go. But
Yes.
maybe you're paying attention to somebody else. I'm like, oh, I want what's up there. I'm like, well, what's down there? I'm like, go with it. And then when you're going with the stream, all you do with your paddle now is you use your paddle as a rudder
Yeah.
effortlessly. Where before you paddle, and the second you went like that to wipe your brow, you move 20 feet back. Like you got nowhere.
I know.
But
Yeah.
now your paddle is like, oh, like it's a rudder effortlessly. But if I want to go this side of the bank or that side of the bank, if I'm drawn to that, it doesn't mean you have to be in the middle of your stream. You can explore. You can get off for a minute and go explore to get back on, but you're always moving in the direction of that stream.
Mm. And so I
Because that,
think,
yeah,
yeah. And so you mentioned that's so interesting because the universe was guiding you to follow who you really are and who you always been,
yeah, yep,
and that's what I feel. And I guess you have to go through an impactful time where whatever happened, you had to go through something like that to really be almost forced to, right?
yeah. But know this: losing a job, um, a breakup, or a death of someone, like it doesn't have to be someone dying. It could be something simple that changed your life. So I
Yeah.
don't want to be like, oh, the people who had the most tragedy are going to be the most successful. I'm like, that is hogwash. It
Right.
is not like that. I actually had a gentleman. I did a yeah, had him on as a guest, and he was a Marine. And he lost his leg, and he was at this place right now where he was comparing losing a job to losing his leg is the same as fear. And like that, like I would never say that because I have both my legs. But here was a gentleman that lost his leg. He's like, hey, when people have fear, losing a job or losing a leg is the same. And once you get over it, he goes, I can function without the leg. So it was pretty high altitude for that guy to say that.
Right.
Again, like yeah, like losing a loved one and losing a job and not how you're going to support yourself. They're going to respond differently, but man, they could be both tragic at the moment it's happening.
Yes.
So when you allow yourself to feel that anger and feel that fear, that's when you could turn it into gold. So don't
Mm.
try to avoid the anger, don't try to avoid the fear, but transmute it. How can I turn my anger into something beautiful? Now I know that. So it's not that anger never comes up in me. I just transmute it to where no one sees it.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time like I heard this, I was listening to a podcast, and it was the Dalai Lama was doing this conference, and it wasn't a podcast, it was a conference he was having. There's people in the audience and stuff, and he got to the point where it was Q&A, and this first guy gets up to ask the first question, and he goes, and the first question he asked Dalai Lama, what is it like never to be angry? And the Dalai Lama just leans in and goes, I have no idea. And everyone laughs, like, right? Because we think, like, what's the answer? And it's like, I have no
Right.
idea.
You're waiting
But
for
what,
this amazing
like,
mystical.
no, Mike, yeah, no. He just takes his anger and transmutes it into something rather than lashes out where then you have to clean up the mess.
Wow.
So these emotions, sadness, anger, they don't disappear. We just transmute it. So if I'm tired or I'm getting frustrated, all of a sudden I go back to my breath. I'm like, oh, I see what's happening. I'm noticing my frustration quicker, going to my breath and eliminating it, which makes me walk up the stairs that much quicker.
Mm.
Will
Wow.
this process end? I don't know. I would never claim it wouldn't, but I'll tell you right now, my anger, no one notices it anymore. Maybe my wife does. Are you angry? I'm like, no, I'm not angry.
Yeah.
but all of a sudden I could turn it really quickly. So my object and goal is not to never be angry, not to never be tired. It's how do I go from being tired to awake? How to go from angry to excitement? I could take the anger and turn it into something brilliant. And we're alchemists. We learn how to use our frequency, our energy. It can catapult us. Like in physics, they call it the slingshot effect. So if you did have a tragic life, pulling it back, and if you let go of the tragedy, phew,
Yeah.
but if you had a great life, phew, Shoot, right? It's like,
Yeah, not,
I'm not saying,
not too
but
far. You just
but
make
that might be the 4 inch step. But you can still keep moving in that direction. I'm not saying look for tragedy so you can do that because you tragedy is going to happen. We
yeah.
don't need to look for it. We don't have to do it. So when that happens and goes so deep and pulls back so far, all we have to do is learn to let go and allow. And that's the key. When you breathe in, the act of breathing in takes effort. But you know what doesn't take effort? It's breathing out. So
Hmm.
the whole idea of breathing is breathe in, and that's where, like in the Bible and other religious texts, talk about where the word God came from. Someone breathed in and went, ah, that's effortlessly. So the first word was the effortless idea of coming out from a breath. It took effort for me to go, God, Allah, whatever it is you pray to came out of that. That's effortless. So when we learn to breathe in and breathe out, when you're breathing out, it shows you how to let go.
Mm. Wow. So
People,
we came
yeah,
back again to the breath, and so important
yeah,
that to go back to that. Wow. So this is such an amazing conversation I'm having with you there. I'm learning so much and so engaged, and I know that people will love this. And it's already been 45 minutes.
oh,
So
wow.
we're having
Yeah,
such a good time.
yeah.
I want to do this in two parts just because
Okay.
it's just such an amazing guest to have. And I want to keep talking to you and learning. So let's do this in another second part coming up, and people will be waiting for the second part. I know it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. To be continued.
we want
Yeah,
Frank.
yeah. No, I appreciate it.
So,
Yeah.
so tell just I want to talk really quick about your podcast and your books. So where can so again your podcast is on YouTube and on Spotify
Yeah,
and
Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Yeah, if you like watching people talk, you can go onto YouTube. Um, and then enjoy the ride and Power Perspective. Power Perspective right now is just on like Kindle or ebook, if you will. But Enjoy the Ride is available on paperback as well as ebook as well, and they're both on what do you call it, Amazon.
on
It's like
Amazon. They
yeah,
can
yeah.
find.
There's a couple of local stores, bookshops out here in Arizona that carry Enjoy the Ride. But yeah, just go on Amazon and get it.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
So and again, thank you again for this time that you gave me here and you gave all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And reminds us to always go back to our flow and stay into the flow of our inner being. And like we talked about the breath, so important. So
Yeah.
it's nice to always think. I think you remind us that we're powerful beings, that we have this amazing power of the
Yeah.
breath, you know.
Yeah.
And
We're waking up to that.
you're
Because
waking up.
once we get out of the fight or flight, life is amazing. Then all of a sudden you're compelled to move in a direction.
Yeah,
Every one of us has our own signature frequency. The way we indicate it is our fingerprint. So if your fingerprint was like grooves in a record, it would have a certain frequency. But your heart also has a frequency. So even though we're very close alike, we each have a signature frequency. And when we start doing this work, we find it and then we add into the world.
and
And
that's
yeah, we came here to create a tapestry. And every thread, 8 billion of our threads on the planet, needs to be put in place. If they're not, we're going to look at the tapestry and like, hey, there's a thread missing. And you're not going to see the whole arching picture. So this is why we think if everyone thought like me, I could live a great life. I'm like, no. If everyone knew what I knew to a degree, or knew themselves, and thought differently, it'd be a brilliant tapestry.
mm,
So we have to know alike in a sense of understanding that we're all one,
wow.
and then think differently in order to, just like the bass player can't mimic the drum player, but can go along with the beat.
Mm,
So if everyone wanted to play drums in the band, there wouldn't be depth to it.
right. And that's so cool.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like what you say is so good. And
yeah,
it makes so much sense. So
yeah,
all collective. of different energies,
Yep.
but it's all the same band,
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
group, the same choreography.
Yeah. And it lets people know that they feel like, hey, my thread's not worth anything. I'm like, that's a complete lie that you bought into, that we've all bought into. But I start looking at the lie more jokingly now. I don't look anywhere else that we were in a hidden camera show and someone finally came out from behind the bush and let us know. I'm like, you almost got me, man. Like we were being lied to, but more in a joking way. That's how I like to play life.
Yeah.
So I don't get upset at it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I bought into that. I thought it was real. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
nah, nah,
You gotta, yeah, I love that. You have Abraham Hicks says there's nothing serious going on here.
no. But we act like it is, you know?
Yeah, I'd be like,
You
"Yeah."
know?
Just
Yeah.
laugh a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
before we go, I was doing this. Have you ever done laughing yoga? And
Yes. Yeah. It was the first time I did it, it was the funniest thing. I didn't know I was gonna do it. And this woman, because we did a regular yoga class and we get together at the end and she's like, hey, we're gonna do this laughing yoga. And I'm like, what? You know? So the woman starts going, ha 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 ha, ha ha ha. And then I'm like, what the is going on here? And I started laughing. Next thing you know, everyone was truly crying laughing
yeah.
because it was funny. But her first laugh was like, ha 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 ha. And I'm like, what the
What's
hell's
going
going
on?
on right now? And it was the greatest thing. And I left that class crying, laughing, and it was better than the damn stretching. Yeah,
I love it, man. I love it. So
yeah,
we'll leave this laughing like this. It's so
yeah.
good. Thanks so much, Frank. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you,
We'll be
Sabo.
back
Yeah,
for part two and here into the flow. Thanks everybody for watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. And again, thanks so much, Frank. And you leave us with a smile on our faces.
yeah. We're part of this. We're one unit right now. That's it. So yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Thanks so much.
All
All
right.
right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Frank.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.